Okay, so I'm just down at Inch Beach. As you can see, it's a gorgeous spot. I just don't want to do a wee landscape of this shot, so I've set my camera up on the tripod. I want to get the water smooth, so I'm going to use a long shutter speed. I want to have everything sharp as well, so if we can zoom in here, you might see the settings on the screen. So as you see, F22 just to get everything in the frame sharp, and you can see a 30-second shutter speed, and the ISO is at 50. So I want to have little noise in the shot as I can. So what I'll do here, it's hard to see the screen, but I've got a rock just at the foreground, so point of interest in the frame. And this is on a timer, so I forgot my shutter release today, so I'm just going to use the timer. 10 seconds, and away we go. So that's the 30 seconds done. And you can see the final result on screen. Really hard to see here because of the light. The light's actually dropping pretty quickly on the beach. So I think pretty happy with that. I'm going to take it back now into Lightroom where I'll show you more. Okay, so just going to go into Lightroom and find a photo. Probably should have had this open, but here you are. That's a photo I've taken. Alright, took down at the beach at Inch. So this is the one we want to edit. Looks pretty good. Wee bit dark. I think we got a few dust spots as well here, so we'll probably need to do a bit of cleaning up. As you can see, the water's pretty smooth. So let's get to work on this one. So first things first, what I normally do is my workflow, so take it down. We're going to get rid of the vignetting around the sides of the picture by adjusting the lens profile, lens correction profile, and I shot this one with a Tamron lens. And that was a 17 to, where is it? 17 to 50, that's it there. There we go, you can see the edges now, the vignetting's gone around the edge. Just come in here, remove chromatic aberration. That's those horrible ghostly lines you see around the edges of things against a bright background. Not too bad in this instance, but remove them anyway. I tend to do this for all my photos. You can see slight change there. I'll do it again. Slight change, but let's get going. We'll zoom back out again. So as you can see, the picture isn't fully straight. The horizon looks horrible, so we want to straighten that out. So there's a few ways of doing this. We can take this tool here for rotating or cropping, and I've got another angle tool here, so we can draw a line along the horizon here, and the photo should straighten out. And hit enter. Much better. So before, after. So what we can do, there's another way of doing this as well. I'm just going to Control or Command Z to undo that. If we come down to our lens correction panel again, you can hit auto. It should pick up the horizon and fix it for us as well. So that's another way of doing it, but two ways. So the next thing, I'm going to start, this is my workflow again, so let's need to find this. Yeah, so the detail panel. So in and around the darks tends to be a wee bit noisy, so just want to show you what I do up in the basic panels, so I want to bring out the details in the shadows. As you can see, there's a lot of shadows in this one, so I'll just pull the details right to the top. You can see everything's got a lot brighter. All the details in the shadows, you can now see them a lot more clearer, and the highlights, pull that down as well, because that'll take down the sky a bit blown out here. Not too bad, I've seen worse, but I'll take it down a bit. And always keep an eye up here in the histogram. If there's anything shooting up to the top or off to the left, you'll know there's something wrong. So I want to bring out the whites a wee bit here as well. So if you grab this slider, while you're doing that, hold down the Alt key and slide to the right until you start seeing white or other colours creeping in. So what that means is once you see colours start coming in, you're starting to get clipping at the right end of the histogram, which means the colours are blown out. So there's no details in those whites. So you want to just keep it very slight. I think that's enough. And do the same for the blacks, except take that down to the left. And again on the histogram, keep an eye. Hold Alt ever so slightly. You can see the blacks creeping in. And that's telling me that there's no details going to come through in those black areas or blue areas. So I'll just leave it at that ever so slightly, I think, just about there. Yeah, I think that looks okay. So as I was saying, when I take up the shadows, you can see some noise developing in and around the dark areas. Whoops. Yeah. So if you keep an eye there, and I'll just bring that down to the detail panel again, and you see noise reduction. I'll take that up to about maybe 30 or 33, and just watch the noise disappear. Perfect. So when you're doing noise reduction as well, you're also losing some details. So when I bring up the sharpening on this one again, what I tend to do, so I reduce the noise and the luminance by 33. So generally take that down. Well, I want to sharpen that a good bit now. You generally take 30 from 100 to at least 70. So sharpen it by about 70%. You can see what happens here. It goes up and around there somewhere. I see it a bit sharpened there. But that sharpening sharpens everything here. So you're getting what looks like noise. Pretty artificial looking. So to get rid of that, I'm going to zoom out and show you. The only thing we want to sharpen are the edges and to bring out the details. So we want to mask the rest, which means only sharpen the edges and not things like the sky and the middle of the water and stuff. So grab your masking slider, hold down Alt again and slide to the right. So you can see the things in white are getting sharpened, the things in black aren't. So just bring that right up until I'm happy with what I want sharpened there. So you can see that areas in black won't get sharpened, areas in white will. So I think around there might do it for now. Yeah, really happy with that. So the next thing I want to do is, as I mentioned before, we've got all these dust spots, and what that is, that's dust on the center. The sensor on the camera. So the reason for that, you'll start noticing dust on the center. If you take a look to the top left of the screen, you can see the settings on my camera. If you're shooting really at anything above f20, maybe even f16, you're going to start seeing dust appearing on the sensor. I mean, your sensor might be completely clean and you might not have any dust spots, but most photographers will agree you're going to get some. So I want to get rid of them. So a few ways of doing that. I usually do it in Photoshop, but I'll show you it in Lightroom just for now. And I use this tool over here to the right. So it's like a clone or healing tool, similar in Photoshop, to get rid of some dust spots. So I'm going to zoom right in here. So that's Command and plus to zoom in and right in again to bring it in closely. And we'll get up to the top here. There. It's just a matter of circling. It'll take an approximation then of the area around it. A few here. So just go over all the wee dust spots that you find. the easiest way of doing it. I think there's a lot more over at the edge, so let's come back out of that and zoom out. You tend to find dust spots in and around the edges of the photos. For some reason, I don't know why, that's where the dust seems to gather. Let's use this wee tool here. So I'll do this really quickly. I'm not going to spend all day doing this. A bit more time normally, it's be more detailed with this, but zoom out here. Just having a wee look around to see if there's any more I've missed. Yeah, looking good. So if there's any more I find later on, I can always fix that at any time. Okay, so I just want to mention also at this point, I always shoot in RAW format, because any adjustment you make here, you're keeping the quality. You can also go back and correct it at a later time. So if you're shooting in JPEG, you'll find these adjustments, they kind of lose their detail and quality when you're making them, and it's harder to go back and correct it as well. So we'll move on now. The next thing I want to do is I want to increase sort of like the vibrance of the picture. So we'll go to the vibrance slider here, just bring it along to the left ever so slightly, up to about maybe 40, something like that. It's looking good. So next thing I notice is there's a lot of blue here. I probably should have adjusted the white balance correctly when I was shooting this scene, but I was pretty rushed doing it, so we can fix that now. That's one of the benefits of shooting in RAW as well, is you can adjust the white balance afterwards. So how to do that in Lightroom? Again, in the basics panel, just where my pointer is, you can see WB, which is white balance, and this is as shot. So I want to change that. I'm thinking more of a sunset feel, something like a warmer feel. We'll try auto. Auto sometimes is good and picks up the scene that was around here. Yeah, that's exactly more what I'm looking for. I'm just going to try shade as well. Might be a bit much, but we'll try it. Yeah, that's nice. That is nice. So I want to keep it to that. You can see the sliders here have moved. It's a lot warmer feel. So just sun's going down. You can see that the shadow or the light coming across the water. Still some blue around the edges, but that's okay. It's a nice feel. It contrasts better with the orange colours, the warmer colours. So I'm going to knock the contrast up a wee bit on this one, just a wee tad, and I'm happy enough with that. Yeah. So still got some dark areas that I would like to bring out some shadows, and even here around the trees and things. But what I'm looking at the minute is the sky. So I want to get some kind of gradient going on here in the sky. So I just use the gradient tool here. What I'm going to do is just change that to an exposure gradient and take it down just a wee tad. Bring it a bit warmer here by bringing the temperature to the right, up to maybe about 50. Start dragging from around three quarters of the way up, down. So don't worry just yet. I know it's a bit orange, but we can change that in a second. So what I want to do is bring that back just a tad, like there. Pull that brightness back down. Exposure, sorry. So as you can see, what I also would like to do is get more detail on those clouds within that gradient. So how I do that is just get the clarity slider and bring it up. I'm going to bring that up to actually pretty high, so you can see the details now come out on the clouds. I'm going to bring that down for comparison. So that's very little detail in the clarity, and bring that right up for loads of detail. Okay. So I want to bring some brightness in from the bottom as well, um, just for effect. Just want to see what it looks like. It was brighter than it looks here, so I want to bring that in on the scene. So again, we use a gradient tool and just change that again to exposure. Bring the exposure up just a wee notch there, and we're going to slide that up. We're going to see, can make it a wee bit warmer as well here with the temperature slider. And I don't want this to be too harsh, so I just drag that right up because that spreads the gradient the whole way across the water. And there it goes. So you can see it's brought out the details, brought out the shadows, and made it much brighter. But I'm still not happy with that. So what I'm going to need to do is adjust this contrast more. That's what I'm looking for. And clarity, I'm going to bring that down just so I get the. I like the water to be silky smooth. So if I move the clarity to the right, you're going to get more details in the water. So I'm going to bring that back down. I want a detailed sky and a smooth water. So that's generally how I do it. And the highlights as well, just bring that up a wee bit and bring the shadows down as well. So it's going to bring a bit of magenta purple in here by moving the tint to the right. Happy enough for that. So starting to take shape. So this is the original so far. This is so far, and that's the original. So already massive difference. Bring that full screen a second. And just get a look. Yeah. So still not finished. A few details I want to go on. I'd like to bring out some details here along the pier and the trees. Maybe highlight this water a wee bit more. So we'll just go up here to the brush tool. Just change that to exposure again. I'm going to increase the exposure. Bring down the contrast. Bring up the highlights a wee bit. And increase the clarity. So I'm going to start painting some light on here on the trees to bring out the leaves a bit. So by the way, I'm just using a graphics tablet, a Wacom tablet to do this. I find that if I'm using the trackpad on the Mac, it's practically impossible, or a mouse, so I'd highly recommend getting a graphics tablet. So you can see some light brought out on there in the trees, maybe a wee bit too much, so I can slide that exposure down a bit. Good. So I want to reflect that. So you're making a change here. Obviously there's reflections in the water as well. So see a slight hint of green here in the water. I'm going to bring that out again. I'm just going to get a new brush. Keep the exposure the same. Maybe bring up the highlights a wee bit. Bring up the shadows a wee bit. Give it a green tint. Slightly, just for the reflection of the trees in the water here. That's more like it. Just along the edge there. Ever so slightly, but it's a really nice contrast with the sky and the water with the greens on the side there. So I'm happy with that. Next thing I'm looking at is this sky here. So obviously the sun is setting down behind these trees, and you can really bring that out. Exaggerate it a wee bit within Lightroom. So we've got a tool here. I can't even remember the name of it. It's almost like a circular gradient tool. So I'm going to reset that. Hold down Alt and reset. So I'm going to mimic the sun here. Make it warmer here on the temperature. Bring the exposure up a bit. Bring the highlights down because I don't want them to blow out all the details. And just where the sun is setting, I'm going to draw a circle. You can see something's happened here. instead of within the circle being adjusted or edited, it's outside it. So I just want to invert that mask there. So it's just within that circle. So as you can already see, I'll turn it off and turn it back on. So that sort of mimics the sun coming behind those trees. So once we've done that, we can adjust it and increase the contrast a wee bit there. Bring up the shadows. So I don't want it blowing out too much here. And that light's now spreading onto the water there as well. So I'm going to bring the clarity down on that, because when you're looking into the sun, things aren't too clear. It doesn't look natural. So bring that down there. Clarity, yep. Bring in a bit of magenta as well. Cool. Looking good. So I've added extra light in here, so that means there's more light going to be coming onto the scene. So I want to replicate that now just by taking another brush. Let's reset that as well. So hold down Alt on the keyboard, and you can see effect here changes the reset. Just hit reset to reset all the settings here. More warmth, bit of magenta, increased contrast. See how we get on with that exposure, and keep the clarity up because I'm painting on the sky here along the top of the mountain. So this is very subtle, so you might not notice this too much. I think I'll take the shadows down a bit. The highlights down as well. Yeah, I'm going to drop exposure on that as well, I think. Yeah, you can see the orange sky coming through more clearly now. So I'll keep painting. You're getting a nice sunset here now, starting to take shape. So not only along the whites of the sky, the bottoms of the clouds need to be adjusted as well. Here. So you have to remember, if you make one change to some light source or artificial light source in the photo, you have to amend it across the whole photo. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to keep those settings for the water as well, but I'm going to take down the clarity because I want to keep that water smooth. So sorry, just keep that there. Just had a new brush and take the clarity down. Start doing my painting on the water. As you can see, this is brightening up those reflections. I think it might be a bit much there. Let's take that clarity down and exposure down a bit as well. Yeah, perfect. I'm going to bring that clarity to 0 actually. Just along here, nice smooth lines. I want to also add some dark areas in between the reflections. So again, just take my brush. I'm going to reset this completely. Get all those settings back to default. Just bring the contrast up and the exposure down, so I can start painting some dark light in between those reflections. Just the idea of this is just to attract your eye to certain areas of the picture, and to give it more depth as well, more contrast. Just some of the shadows are just underneath the trees and the water. I think I might even darken down the mountains at the back as well. Just in here. make that brush bigger. So this is completely up to yourself how you want to do this, but it's mostly trial and error sometimes, but you can correct things as you're going along as well. But I think this looks pretty good. I don't want to go overboard in a few things as well, so I just want to take the contrast down there. I think it's a bit dark. Exposure up a wee tiny bit as well. Yeah. Oh, maybe a bit too much. Back down again. Yeah, really happy with that. That's cool. So just come out of that. I just want to have another wee look at this full screen. Give my computer a wee second to catch up. There we go. Yeah, looking good. Now I noticed something weird going on over here. Yeah. So what's happened here is when I was removing a dust spot, it's taken a piece off here. We can fix that, no problem. We can do that in Photoshop, which I'll do right now. Just let my computer catch up with itself here. Righto, so zoomed out again. I'm going to bring this into Photoshop. This will be my next step anyway. I want to do a few more adjustments in Photoshop and get rid of this horrible thing on the right hand side. So just right click on your photo and go to edit. Edit in Photoshop. CS6 is the one I'm using at the minute. So you might have compatibility issues with the Camera Raw plugin you have for your computer. So this instance, just click render using Lightroom, and it'll replicate the image as a TIFF file then within Photoshop. So we'll just let that load. You'll always get a wee notification or progress bar at the top left of the screen. So it's preparing the file now for editing in Photoshop. Depending on the size of the file, it can take a few seconds, a few minutes, and depends on the size of the processor on your computer as well. So just let that run. Shouldn't take too long, but I'll probably pause the recording at this stage just for this. Okay, so now you can see the image in Photoshop, and the first thing I want to do is remove this horrible thing in the corner. So what I normally do with any photo I'm doing in Photoshop is just duplicate that layer, drag it down. I'm going to go in really close here. I suppose the best way to do this maybe would be to grab the clone stamp tool. So I'm going to grab an area here, hold down Alt, make this bigger, and just start painting along there. Let's make that smaller. Yeah. So we've now got rid of that nasty, horrible thing in the corner. If I take away that layer, you can see it. No, you don't. Alright. Completely sorted. We'll just zoom back out. So, looking good. I'm really happy with the picture. I just want to sharpen it a wee bit more. There's a few ways of doing this. Some sharpening I don't like, because it sharpens everything. So the way I do this in Photoshop is just going to duplicate that layer again. I'll go to filter. Some people use this one, Sharpen. I don't like it a lot. I like it for some things, but not for this instance. I could just go to other, go to high pass. You can see what happens. You can see that it's converted the image to almost grayscale, with highlights on the edges of everything. If I zoom in, you can see almost a ripple under the water, the edge of the rock, the mountains. Generally, I go a radius of the sharpening, or sorry, the high pass filter of 3.9 or 4. In this instance, I'll show you what happens when I bring it up full. It's ridiculous looking. It brings the picture back at the bottom. So if I keep it down and around 3.5, we've just got the sharpening around the edges here. So okay, that. Just zoom out so you can see what's happened here. So you can now see the details on the edges, and the clouds, the rock, the trees, and the mountains. So just come over then to your layers panel. So this was your top layer. If you want, you can call it sharpening or something. And you want to blend that now over your original image. Just go to your blending modes here. Change that to overlay. You probably not notice a big difference straight away, but things will be much sharper. We'll zoom right in. This is super close up, and I'll show you the difference without it. With it. Zoom out a wee bit more. Come in here. Without, with. Not massive a difference, but it can make a difference. Especially when you're printing, it can bring it out a lot more. So that's pretty much it. So the next thing I want to do is flatten that image and bring it back into Lightroom again. So just flatten the image. The reason I do that, if I bring it back into Lightroom the way it is, it's going to be a huge file size. It's going to keep the layers and all that information, so it's flattened down into the one image now. So if I go File and Close, and make sure and hit Save here, because what it's doing, it's automatically going to bring it back into Lightroom. Along the bottom you can see it's saving here. Go back into Lightroom. That image is now here. So looking pretty good. Getting towards the end now, so just a few last tweaks. This is now a TIFF file, so it's a pretty high detailed file. I'm just going to bring up the shadows just a wee bit on this one again, and pull down the highlights. There we've got a nice sunset there now. Bring the blacks down just a wee bit as well. And one last thing, I don't tend to do this for a lot of photos, but I think it might look good in this one. It's the post-crop vignetting, so the highlight priority, just bring that down a wee bit to bring darkness around the edges a bit, and feather that right to the top so it's not too harsh. There you have it. Let's bring that full screen. Really happy with that one. Let's come back out again, and I'll show you how it looked originally. And this is how it looks finished. Original, finished. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll upload this video to my website. That's derryphotos.com. I'm going to upload the raw file as well, which means you can download it and try it out for yourself. So I'd like to see some of your pictures if you've tried this out. So if you just email them to info@derryphotos.com, and I'll then upload them to the website for everyone to see. So thanks very much again, and hopefully I get another one uploaded soon. Thanks.